Welcome to Different Gravy, not just another Sheffield Wednesday podcast. I'm one of the hosts, Richard Miller, and my co-host, who has opted to douse his whole body in hand sanitizer before donning his hazmat suit and surgical mask, but is now ready to bump elbows with the best of them, Dr. Luke, the Dean of Clean, Gledall. How are you doing today, Luke?
I'm good. How are you, Rich?
I'm all right. It feels like there's a hole been left in my life somewhere. There's something that was supposed to be happening on Saturday afternoon that isn't happening. But so
you're just walking around with the general feeling of like, have I left the oven on, basically?
I've just got that and just that kind of low level nervous about a team sheet that will never come out. Who's Monk going to imaginarily play in midfield today? I think probably
It's a bit like Schrodinger's cat of Tom Lees is in the box, but he's not in the box.
Yes. I'm pretty sure by now Schrodinger's cat is just dead anyway.
It's been a long time.
It's a really long time ago.
Yeah.
I think I can answer that philosophical question at this stage.
I think he's died of suffocation.
Yeah. If it wasn't a poison, old age will have well and truly ravaged that poor old cat.
Maybe we can conceptually think him back to life, though, Rich. Maybe. I don't know.
Just by shaking the box. I think you could probably trick a child into thinking there was a cat in the box still. Oh, yeah. Look, it's still alive.
Because children are idiots, aren't they, Rich? Get some schooling, kids. Oh, wait, you can't. Your school is closed.
Unlucky children. Try it next year.
Oh, so I really feel like I just want to kind of say just at the top of the episode, as all of you, we're all enthralled by just the continual news about COVID-19. And I'm sure you're really happy. Just check your emails and see what the CEO of Taco Bell and McDonald's have to say about the COVID-19 virus. So just I thought really that we could, Rich Miller, CEO of Different Gravy, could give his own missive.
I think broadly we'll all be fine, and everyone should calm down, cool it with the toilet paper thing. You don't need that much toilet paper. You're all right. In fact, it's not even one of the symptoms. If this was a diarrhea bug that was going around, have at it. Pile up that toilet paper. You're going to need it, buddy. But this is a sort of dry pneumonia coffee thing. I think you won't be racing through tons and tons of tissues unless you're at home, time on your hands. There was other uses for tissue. So, if you've got big plans, I'm just saying, if I'm seeing you walking away with a kind of industrial-sized, van full of toilet tissue, I'm thinking things about your internet browsing habits rather than thinking that you're a great prepper for the future. That's the statement from the chief exec of Gravy Industries. As the co-exec, would you like to make a small statement of your own, Luke?
I think COVID-19, it's not good. That's what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
You can't disagree with that, right? You can't.
Absolutely. I'm on board with that statement. I think that's. I wholeheartedly agree that COVID-19 much worse than COVID-18, which seemed to pass without anybody noticing, and definitely the worst COVID I've come across thus far.
My favourite was now that's what I call COVID-11. That was a good one.
It was quirky, wasn't it?
It was.
They couldn't get the original rights to some bits of the virus, so they had to put like remixes in, and that gave it a different feel. It's like niche stuff about now that's what I call music collections.
Excellent.
So
Wednesday.
I feel like we should play
Sheffield Wednesday Football Club.
I feel like we should play the breaking hoo-hoos just to kind of put us on a footing of this is official news territory.
Breaking hoo-hoos.
So for anybody who has missed this, and I don't know how you would miss this, the whole of everything has been cancelled for at least a couple of weeks because of Luke's friend, COVID-19. I wish he hadn't brought him along, but he did. He insisted on bringing him to the party, and he's made a mess. And the sooner both of them leave, the better. But it means...
Hey,
we can absolutely say for certain Sheffield Wednesday won't lose until at least April the 3rd, which is a statement that I didn't think I'd be able to say on Thursday. But come Friday this week, I could say it pretty wholeheartedly and fulsomely.
And I mean, also the flip side of that is we can really keep this winless run going for even longer, basically.
Yes. So there's still, as Luke sort of touched on, it's still a developing situation. We don't know whether the games that are postponed will ever be played. Where that leaves things in terms of promotion and relegation and our potential points deduction is all well and truly up in the air, and it makes a kind of I
don't want to get too apocalyptic on everybody, but I mean, it is a bit biblical because, there is obviously this virus, but also it's leading to a real points drought at Hillsborough, isn't there?
Yes. And I believe
maybe some locusts of mediocrity, perhaps, that are
very nice.
Getting into the players. I'd yes.
Digesting everything that's good and green and rosy about the club, those locusts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe there's some biblical proportions to things. I mean, there's been lots of folks talking about how unimportant football is in the scale of, this huge human, whatever it is, tragedy, whatever you call it. But it's a shame. It's a shame that the football's been cancelled. I do agree. I think games with no crowd is total nonsense, and I'm glad.
I actually would have loved to have seen. I would have loved to have seen some games being recorded in a hollow, echoey Hillsborough.
Imagine
that training. We could also hear the players as well. That would be quite fun.
That would be quite good, wouldn't it?
That would be quite hilarious.
We could hear the deathly silence as our players don't talk to each other for 90 minutes on the pitch. Have zero communication. Because their captain is a mute man.
Just want to hear the faint murmurings of Bannon, swearing under his breath when we can see the goal. Yeah,
I would like to hear what Bannon says to Palmer all those times. Although I am slightly worried it may lead to Bannon being cancelled.
Maybe they're arguing about. Maybe it's just completely off topic. Maybe they're just talking about you have a long running argument over the ending of Lost. Maybe.
Oh yes, but none of it makes sense because if you put a smoke monster in there, you're existing in a different reality.
And that's what Liam Palmer says to Bannon because he's Scottish as they come.
They're both Scottish. It could be either of them. It really could. True Scotsman.
Now I obviously am envisaging that they clearly live together as the odd couple, don't they? The odd Scottish couple.
You can't have a polar bear on a tropical island. I think I gave up on Lost around about season 3, so my reference is probably dated in that regard. There was probably
even more dated by me bringing it up, which is already a dated reference.
Yes.
It's like a prehistoric. It's like the Triassic era of references.
Well, seeing as J.J. Abrams has been allowed to go on and ruin all of pop culture for us since producing the disappointing Lost, I think it's still relevant. It's still worth talking about his back catalogue.
All right. Now that's what I call deep cut references.
Yeah, exactly. But
anyway, I mean, this is the thing. It's like I'm finding it really tough right now. Hilariously, beginning of this month, I signed up for subscription to Sportsnet, which is Canada's sports network, TV network, to watch basically the Wednesday game against Man City, which was on Sportsnet World, which is the only kind of English football rights they have.
Okay.
There's DAZN, which is like a kind of Netflix of sport. They have all the Premier League and then some of the TV championship games as well for the Sky ones and ones that are picked for, international viewing. The feature game that you'll see at 3 p.m., on, what is it? Is it EFL on Quest? What the hell is it these days?
Yeah, EFL on Quest.
Quest does sound like a TV channel that basically just shows, Treasure Hunt on repeat.
I think that basically is what it does. To be honest, I just made a savage assumption about a piddling little TV channel on the depths of cable.
But anyway, the point I was trying to say was basically I did that so I could watch the game, and then I could also watch the rest of the regular NHL hockey season, which would have gone until April 3rd, and then basically, obviously, that's suspended. NBA, not that I give much of a shit about that sport, is suspended as well. I think they were talking about like the college basketball was going to be played in basically front of arenas. I want to see more of this. I want to see more of empty stadium.
You like the empty?
I think there's something rather kind of echoing and sad about watching. And also, I want to see whether, like, if actual regular games would we think that it has the feel of a glorified training session or like an exhibition or friendly match, or how much of the crowd does make an effect. I think it's something that was interesting, especially with Wednesday. I was really hoping that the game would have gone ahead just behind closed doors, because I would have liked to have seen how much Hillsborough has an effect on things and how much the home fans have an effect on things.
Without the nerves of the crowd on them, Tom Lees and Cameron Dawson suddenly become the best goalkeeper and defender you've ever seen.
That's one option. I was also wondering, though, maybe I don't want to know, because it would be really depressing if we were even worse.
Yes, it would. Yeah. I was kind of thinking of the upside of things, but you're absolutely right. We're just as good of a chance that we would. We'd be worse than we are now. I think you couldn't help but have it feel a bit like a pre-season friendly. I think certainly atmosphere-wise, it's gonna be very reminiscent of that sort of a game. And then I do think probably as a player, you're not gonna have that same adrenaline sort of buzzing through your system. So I just think the intensity would probably not be there in quite the same way.
But then obviously that's the same thing for the home team and the opposition as well. I don't know, I thought it would have been an interesting experiment. I can see why a lot of people... It's incredibly sad for the game if it would have gone to that, but I don't know. I think right now everything's just kind of, missing football is huge. The thing I was going to get onto was I signed up for this subscription to streaming.
Oh, sorry.
And there's nothing really happening. They're not even doing like the whole kind of ESPN classic, like old classic games. And it's like, I don't know why they don't do that. I don't want to, I don't know if there's going to be solo tractor pulling from the Ukraine. It's just been... What was there like last night? I think I saw there was some curling, which is obviously it's big in my parts, and there was some Canadian soccer game featuring the Montreal Impact and a team I couldn't figure out. Okay. But I couldn't figure out if it was new or it was old, and I don't know what was going on. So it's all just very strange. I don't know what my subscription dollars are for, but I want something being captured, even if it's something old being shown.
Yeah.
I want something happening, and I'm really going to struggle during however long this period expands for, because I'm going to miss my bread and circus.
Yes.
This is it. It's like I was irritated with all the sport kind of ending. I'm sure I'm sure you guys are facing this. Some people are in the cusp of working remotely right now. So I'm probably going to go to that. I'm really going to miss kind of going in and seeing my work colleagues. And it's really ripping a lot of that social fabric apart. I mean, I guess it's overall the question of like, we need to take some precautions, yes, but do we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, in this regards? Like, do we need to completely disrupt everything that we do as a race? And so much of what we do is social, is seeing people, is that contact with people. And it's not fun for a number of reasons, but dealing with this time, it really isn't fun.
It's also, this is kind of theoretical in some ways as well. China obviously was the heart of the outbreak, and then when the World Health Organization are officially calling it a pandemic, although everybody's been calling it a pandemic for weeks, when they officially did it, they praised China for how well they've done and kind of throw shade by not mentioning some of the other countries. The UK seems to be pretty far behind the curve in terms of these kind of isolation and social distancing measures. We don't have, even though football has made a decision, that there's not been an official sort of ruling to say that concerts and large gatherings and things are not allowed. That might happen sometime in the next week. But yeah, you're right. I think there's so much of life is going to be affected, but hopefully it's for a short term. But I think for me that's the tricky thing, is that you go, well, how long are we willing to put up with this for the kind of greater good? 2 weeks is one thing, 4 weeks is another thing entirely. If it's longer than that, at some point life has to go on. This is obviously, it's a big threat, but it's not. I don't know. It doesn't seem like it's like the plague or something where basically everybody that contracts it is doomed to a horrible death. Most people have very mild symptoms, so the majority of society could sort of continue fairly normally. Life has to continue in some way, and as you say, there's folks that sort of social isolation. Seeing people in work, and even if it's just a kind of hello at the start of the day and a goodbye at the end of the day, that might be the only social interaction a lot of people have in their day, and taking people away from that for weeks and months will have an effect as well. Yeah, we can't do anything other than what we're told, really. But
no, I don't know. I guess it's funny. I was listening to you I listened to you back on the Love Sport radio show that was on last night, and the fact that you're bringing up, people are saying, April 3rd isn't really, it might not really do much good. Really, it's not really a good length of time. I mean, here's the interesting thing, and that might kind of span out from this. People probably aren't going to like this, but I think we're just going to have to just cancel the season, and the ramifications in all the league. We're basically just going to have to say that, which is harsh at this point that stuff hasn't finished. So
is there kind of a footballing equivalent of the Duckworth-Lewis method?
I don't think but I think Duckworth-Lewis method is actually supposed to kind of determine a victor in this, and I think we'll probably just end up saying it's just call it null and void, basically. I mean, you can't, because I wonder if that's just going to be like a whole litigation thing, though. If right now you said, basically, what are you going to say? The top two go up? How are you going to determine the third? Are you going to go, or unless they go it's playoffs? But then someone else is going to kick off and basically say, we didn't get the full breadth of the chance to get into as expected in the season. So,
and you'll get Premier League teams saying we didn't get the chance to turn our season around.
Turn the season around and stay up. So I think that's the only thing you can go to. I think the only thing you can really go to is basically just, you may as well just write off this entire season.
Yeah,
and I would be happy with that as a Wednesdayite, for this pure selfish reason that
it's been one of the worst seasons in recent memory.
Worst season in recent memory, but there's going to be some people hurting, and probably been some Twitter gags. I have seen a Twitter gag about someone. Well, there was a talk about a meteor. It's a special meaty pizza produced by people at Domino's, and they're still delivering now, folks. So ring 1-800-DOMINOS to get your pizza fix in your veins. No, a meteor. Did you say a meteor? Is that what it is?
Yes, they've got meteor, yeah.
A meteorite was going to come and collide with Earth, for some chance of it getting incredibly close, and then some gags about could happen in April, and some gags about, someone really doesn't want Liverpool to win the league, and but Liverpool win the Premier League because of this.
I think, give them a little pat on the head, and good try, nice try, and try again next year. If you're really good, you'll win it next year.
Send Jurgen Klopp a commemorative kind of spectacle cleaning device. I don't know, with little lion insignia on there for the Premier League. That's your honours.
Do they still do the pools panel?
The pools panel? I don't think so. No, I don't even know what that is, I'll be honest.
Oh, do you remember the football pools? Like a kind of lottery but for football.
Yes. I
think it's still going. Yes. I don't know. I think it's still going. But when a game was postponed that was picked for the pools, they had a pools panel that would meet and decide what the result was for the purposes of the pools, because people needed to know whether they'd won or lost.
You're right. Yeah.
So I think you could have just...
There are old dears in limbo. We need to... My nana used to do the polls.
Yeah, there we go.
I think she won a few quid on a few occasions, but nothing substantial.
So
no oversized... She didn't have the oversized checks in her flat. you know.
Yeah, yeah. So I think, something like that could work. Maybe invite all of the managers of the 93 get to vote on every result between now and the end of the season, and like whoever gets the most votes gets a 1-0 win.
I like it.
Just to get it sorted. I mean, one of the things that could, I would be very surprised if it doesn't happen, is I think the Euros will probably get postponed. Because if you had to design a tournament to perfectly spread a person-to-person communicable disease around a continent, you couldn't do much better than the Euros that is planned for this summer. I mean, I think Wales...
Well, they did bring in the controversial new thing of all the players making out at the beginning, so yeah, I can see that point, Rich.
The handshake is not doing enough for good relations in the stands. What we need is Frenching.
Slip a tongue.
Slip a tongue. If that leads to a grope, more's the better. That's what they say. That's what the officials say.
And then it'll also filter down to the Football League, and people were saying, Clotter and Monk, will there be tongue?
Well, just looking. So, it'd be really helpful if this told me where they were playing, wouldn't it? I think Wales play. Yeah, so Wales play. This is just an example. Wales play in Rotterdam on the 6th of June, and then play in Baku, Azerbaijan, on the 13th of June. And most teams will have a schedule along those lines. It's like, what would be really good is if we could take people, if we could just keep moving a disease round and round Europe till everybody gets it, that you would plan the Euros, the 2020 Euros. It's baffling how they came up with it. And in this current situation, I just cannot see it not falling down.
Well, it's quite funny how certain things kind of pan out here in Canada. Tim Hortons is our, cafe, coffee place of choice and donut place, whatever you want to call it. And basically they have their roll up the rim competition. So basically they give people cups which they roll up and then they rip out for a free coffee or a free donut or, bigger prizes people can win. And then this year they were planning to do reusable cups. So all of it's just been so wrong. It was like, we don't want to do reusable cups. That's not a good idea. We also don't want things that people have put in their mouths, around their mouths, giving to our staff. So we're not having that at all. It's all gone to an app basis. So I think basically that shows a lot of similarities with the European Championships of 2020. It's just a bad idea.
But yeah, the decision to hold the tournament over, so we got Rome, Baku, St. Petersburg, Copenhagen, Amsterdam, Bucharest, London, Glasgow, Bilbao, Dublin, and Munich. It's it's a terrible, terrible plan in the face of a contagious disease going around. So if that gets moved, that would potentially buy some time for fixtures to happen in the summer, maybe.
And then there's the interesting question that was brought up last night was the, I don't just want to completely regurgitate something else that happened, but I thought it was really interesting talking about what happens with contracts.
Mm.
Well, the loan deals, initially, the loan deals effectively are effective until the end of May, I believe. If it's end of season, it's end of May, I think.
I think loan deals have a slight open end to them because you might end up in you might end up in some post-season football. But yeah, it is an interesting question. I would guess I'd hope there'd be some sort of sensible football-wide arrangement that players just stay on a week-to-week contract. But the players won't want that. It'll be, I'm sure a lot of ours would love another year or two at the wages they're currently on because they're not going to get them elsewhere, and that will be something that's repeated all across the footballing world.
Well, here's the funny thing right now is that the players are still training at Wednesday. So Monk was interviewed and basically afterwards and basically said, we're basically focusing on the Swansea game, which would be April the 3rd game or our next game in April. And I don't know. Like they need to keep fit, but it just feels a bit stupid, really.
Well, the thing is, as it stands, the footballing authorities have said the 3rd. I find it weird that they've immediately then briefed the press that probably it won't be the 3rd. The question is why they said the 3rd if they don't think they can make it. That's a very strange decision from the footballing, powers that be. All football is suspended till the 3rd. By the way, probably not going to be playing on the 4th, so keep that under your hat. I'll just tell the chief football correspondent of the BBC. Probably won't get any further than him, I don't think. So, whether that's a kind of, a trial balloon sort of thing. So we'll brief, we'll let it slip out there. It probably will be a bit longer and see how people react to that. I don't know because, it's not. I don't think that's beyond the powers of the folks in charge of the Premier League to think that they're so brilliantly clever that they can kind of market test how long to delay the football for. But so what that would mean effectively means this weekend's match is postponed, obviously. So that's Nottingham Forest. It means Bristol City on Tuesday is postponed. And it also means that the West Brom game is postponed. And then potentially, as you say, the next game back would be away at Swansea. But if it's another 2 weeks, then that's the bulk of the rest of the season, basically, isn't it?
But again, if we suspend the games, so many ramifications, right? Like, we're missing 3 games. 3 games isn't too bad to make up if that happens. Could you imagine them saying, no, let's not make up the games?
Yeah, I sort of feel like there'll either be a plan to play all of the games or it will all be cancelled. It just seems weird that we'd be in a situation where we play some of the games and not. Because like you say, if it's 3 games, that's a week. You can squeeze them in somewhere, can't you, at the tail end of the season? But if it's 6, then I think that's pretty difficult to try and sort out, and that feels like more like a situation where we could end up with a season kind of cancelled. Do you know what Spain have done? I know Spain have just called it off, haven't they? But if they, in terms of whether in the history books, does this season count? So whoever was top is the champion, or have they just written off the season?
That's a good question. I haven't seen or looked into that, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to try and pretend that I know. So
no, it's all right. So to fill folks in, obviously the coronavirus, it's having an effect on the footballing world. The first thought in everybody's head, what does this mean for Different Gravy? And basically, if you imagine this as a bit of a placeholder, we were expecting to talk about a football match this weekend. That changed on Friday. Next, we've got plans for sort of bits and bobs that we can do, features and fun things to do in the absence of football. So that will sort of come into effect starting next week. So yeah, this really is a kind of a placeholder to let you know we're both at this point in time corona free, and we're planning not to let it adjust our schedules particularly. Although maybe a bit more time at home will allow for more fun and games on the podcast. Mm-hmm. It's a huge issue, and we know our friends across the city have no worries, no qualms getting litigious if decisions don't go their way. I imagine they won't be the only ones headed to the courts if they decide this season doesn't count. I'm sure they would want the right to battle for their European place, for example. And in our situation, there will be clubs at the bottom. All those clubs at the bottom will be sort of licking their lips about the potential points deduction we're going to have. So where that falls, when that falls, will play a big part in who goes down as well. If it was 9 points, that would be quite nice for us right now, because it would mean we wouldn't quite go into the relegation zone. Although on form, we're certainly playing much more like a relegation zone team than anything else. You've just the hope would be that it lights a bit of a fire under us actually being down there, because at the moment we're one of those mid-table teams that is sort of dawdling towards the end of the football season, hoping not to get embroiled in the bottom end of things and not showing enough interest or quality to get involved at the top end of things. Do you have any faith that we'd be able to kind of flick a switch and show some intensity if we ended up down in the mire?
Stranger things have happened, but I want to say no, basically.
Oh, That's it's sobering, but hard to disagree with. So for today, is there anything else that we'd like to talk about, or should we let everyone get back to their lives and?
I think we've covered it, but I think I also want to say it's weird because I want to kind of keep doing this podcast during that period because I think I want some semblance of life still kind of happening.
Yeah.
I guess immediately, I think to myself, and I think maybe some people who listen would probably think, and probably a lot of people would think, why are you still doing this during this period? And it's just because I want to try and keep something kind of going that kind of reminds semblancy. And I think I would kind of want to give that to a little bit of a gift that I can give to people if I can do a little bit of this. That I always hope that people enjoy this. I never want to get too kind of high on myself or too up on myself. So I'm very kind of cautious about how I kind of think about like doing this podcast. So I'm really glad that people enjoy and people are listening. And if you've listened to this one, I really greatly appreciate it. But, I kind of want to give this as a little kind of gift to people just because I think we need to keep doing some things that kind of entertain ourselves or kind of distract ourselves.
Yeah.
And I enjoy doing this because I get to chat to you, Rich. I get to kind of do a deep dive on things.
Yeah.
I enjoy being silly about these things. I enjoy sometimes the over-analysis. I enjoy sometimes everything that we kind of aim to do. I enjoy doing through this. So in whatever form we kind of take going forward and how we kind of cover this period, I still want to kind of do this broadcast really to
absolutely. Yeah,
my other fellow Wednesday fans, and I love you all. And it's God, it's a shitty time. It's been a shit season, and this just kind of compounds things. It just kind of really rubs the salt in the wound.
Looking back, this will be one of the weirdest. It's got to be one of the weirdest seasons in the history of Sheffield Wednesday. I know this is a weird. This virus thing is weird for the whole world, but the start of this season was so strange. We started this podcast in the midst of our manager getting poached. Literally days before the season started, and it's just been full of bizarre bits and pieces all the way along, and in some ways it's almost not surprising that something completely out of the blue like this has come to derail things at this point in the day. But no, I echo your sentiments, Luke. We want to keep doing this. One of the big parts of the podcast, and I hope it's one of the things that people enjoy, is me and Luke just like talking to each other. And full disclosure, one of the reasons we started doing the podcast was to sort of force ourselves to do that more often. Transatlantic friendships, distant friendships, transatlantic friendships. It's tricky to kind of keep those going, keep those fresh, because we're working at different time scales, and sometimes I'm waking up and when Luke's going to bed and things like that. So it's been a wonderful thing to do, and the fact that the people that fed back to us, at least, people might be privately saying terrible things about it, but the folks who feed back to us, it's always very positive, and that's really heartening. And we just want to, essentially, typical different gravy. This podcast episode is running longer than we originally intended it to, but just to sort of reiterate, this is a kind of placeholder, and we'll keep plugging away, and we'll have some sort of fun discussion pieces for the weeks ahead. But obviously today was a bit of a surprise that the football just didn't happen. I was all set I was literally texting back and forth with my sister, who I attend games with, about what our plans were for going across to Sheffield on Saturday, and then there's an announcement that all football is cancelled for a couple of weeks. So yeah, it's a shock. It's one we'll deal with, and hopefully you'll stick with us, and hopefully we'll reward you for sticking with us. But other than that, I'm going to say cheerio, Luke, and wish you a good week.
Have a good one, Rich.